Hello, Rabbi Manis Friedman. Thank God it's Tuesday. So grateful for having you with us. And as I just was saying to our audience, everybody has Mashiach on their lips, on their mind. Those who know what they're waiting for, those who do not, but it seems everywhere we turn, it's Mashiach, 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 and then there are so many people that are so annoyed by this. What Mashiach? What are you guys talking about? We're living in this world. Stop it with your Mashiach. We have to figure it out now. We have the Republican National Convention. We have the Democratic National Convention. Everything is going to be decided based on who becomes the president of the United States. But is that really the case?
God forbid. God forbid. We'd be in big trouble if that was the case. We can't. We've never relied on human beings. You choose the right candidate, of course. You got to be responsible. We always make the right choices, but we rely on the truth. And you're not going to have truth coming out of Washington. I think we know that for a fact.
Yeah, I think we're all in sync on that one.
So hopefully we'll have a little goodness, a little sanity, but the solution is Mashiach if we understand what Mashiach means.
Right last week, I got a wonderful link to a new movie. It's called Finding Mashiach. And you were the first one that they turned to ask about Mashiach. And every single prominent respected rabbi of our time that is also took part in this movie, everybody is on the same page that we are in this pre-messianic time. Some are saying that Mashiach is here, and but it's still a very, very hard concept to grasp. If Mashiach is here, why can't we see him? What is he waiting for? Finding Mashiach, where do we look? How can we get him to, reveal himself to us? What is going on? There are so many questions that we need answered. And Rabbi Friedman, you're our source of wisdom. So
I think everybody in their own way does believe in Mashiach, because Mashiach simply means true leadership, true moral leadership. Well, who doesn't want that? Who's against that? And who isn't ready to admit that we don't have it, that we're in desperate need of it? So Mashiach simply means, I think I told you this story. I was talking to this teenage girl who had a very, very difficult childhood. Really bad. Not just in her opinion, but in everybody's opinion. From a secular family, but somehow one of her relatives, her uncle, her aunt, got her into a yeshiva. She learned about God, she learned about Mashiach, and she became hopeful. But then, I don't remember what happened exactly, but she lost that optimism. And she told the yeshiva she doesn't really believe in God, she doesn't believe in Mashiach. Life is very, very bad. So I spoke to her, and she says, look, the world is horrible, the world is terrible. There's too much evil, there's too much darkness and too much pain. I said, so what are you going to do about it? What conclusion are you coming to? She says, since I'm very aware of this terrible reality, when I get older, I will try to fix it. So playing devil's advocate, I said, fix it? You just convinced me that it is not fixable. She says, oh, come on, it can always get better. I said, and you don't believe in Mashiach? Anyone who says either it must get better, I mean, this can't be it, or it will get better, is talking Mashiach. Because anyone who can think, in seeing reality, not being naive or in denial, rationally speaking, it doesn't seem like this world is redeemable. You get rid of one evil, there's always another waiting. You get rid of one criminal, there's always another criminal waiting. So what do you mean? All of a sudden, after all these years, the world is going to become perfectly good? It's not realistic. And yet we're told that it's inevitable, it must happen, it is happening, and we're close to the conclusion, to the completion of that plan. If you think life is going to get better, you're talking Mashiach. Because there is no individual that we know of today that can turn the world around and make it better. You can add to the goodness. It's like, let's say the world is divided 50-50. Half good, half bad. It seems like it's 90% bad, but okay, that's not true. It's also not true that it's 90% good. So let's say 50-50. Anyone who thinks that they can make the world better is thinking we should make it, instead of 50-50, it should be 60-40, 70-30. But to actually believe that the whole world is going to become good and there will be no evil in the world, what kind of thinking is that? Where is that coming from? Not from human reasoning, but from the knowledge that God created the world with His plan. His plan is 100% good because He is one. He doesn't tolerate division, that it can't be good and bad. It all has to become good. If that's God's plan, if that was the original vision, if this is what history is moving towards, then there is hope. Now the Rebbe comes along and says, boy, we're so close. Open your eyes and you'll see. That's not easy. You open your eyes to the television and you don't see anything good. You open your eyes to a newspaper and there's nothing good. It's all fake news. So you have to open your eyes and see the things that the media is not reporting. That's where the progress is happening, behind the scenes. Well, if you look behind the scenes, yes, the world is definitely becoming better. At least in identifying the truth or identifying the lies. I think we're getting much better at it. At least we know when we're hearing something that isn't true. Of course, you can safely assume that whatever you hear isn't true because it's probably not true. You don't have to even guess. So Mashiach simply means the world cannot remain like this. It must get better, and it will. If that's how you think, you're thinking Mashiach. So Mashiach is understood both as a universal shift and an individual who will guide or inspire that shift.
Rabbi Friedman, how do we know that we are near? It has been bad for so long, and people have been hopeful for just as long, because it's never been good enough or good to the point that we did not want to change. So how do we know that this is it?
That's the challenge. That is the question of the hour. You know, we just fasted on the 9th of Av. We fasted because it was the day in which the first temple was destroyed and the second temple was destroyed, the one that King Solomon built and the one that Ezra built. I always wondered, why are we still grieving over the loss of the first Beis Hamikdash? You would think the second Beis Hamikdash, the second temple, took away the grief of the first temple loss. We lost the first temple, but then we got a new one. So if we're grieving, it's grieving the second temple. Why the first? So it seems like the second temple didn't really make up for the loss of the first one completely, which is surprising. Why is it that we're still grieving the first temple? So it's possible that we're not grieving the first temple, we're not grieving the second temple, we're grieving how long it takes to get to the third temple. Between the first and second temple, there were only 70 years. 70 years of exile, which is bad. 70 years of communism, interesting. The same amount of years. 70 years is a long time. But it's not 2,000. Since the second temple, it's almost 2,000 years. That's a long time to wait for a little comfort, for a little healing. So it's not the first, the second, it's the fact that there isn't the third. Also, the hopefulness is rather impressive or miraculous, but even the despair is miraculous when you think about it. It's very upsetting that the world is not better than it is. Well, what does that show? Maybe we shouldn't be upset. Maybe we simply should get used to the fact that this is the world. There will always be wars. There will always be diseases and pandemics. There will always be pain and suffering. Get used to it. Stop kvetching. Life stinks, and that's a fact. And make the best of it, or suffer silently, but stop kvetching.
A lot of people do have that attitude.
Very few. Most people are upset, and they want to scream, and they want to complain, and they want to do something about it. Even that is a little miraculous. You know, when you suffer for 2,000 years, you should be used to it by now. We're not used to it. It's wrong. It shouldn't be this way. It's got to change. That itself is an amazing faith. It's not a religious faith. It's just a human condition that we cannot. Not that we don't want to. We can't. We can't get comfortable when the world is bad, wrong, dark. We can't accept it. Did we ever see an alternative? Did we ever see a world that isn't this way? No. So where are you getting this reason to be upset? You're upset because you think it could be different and it should be different. Well, how do you know that? What's different? Show me a world where people don't suffer. You've never seen such a thing. So where do you get this notion that there shouldn't be suffering? Why aren't we completely callous, completely jaded? I mean, yeah, you say there are some people that way. I actually heard from a professor at Berkeley who was himself a survivor. He says, why don't you have the courage to admit that life just stinks? Stop with your optimism and stop with your hope and your faith and this is it. This is a world of holocausts. You're afraid? Well, muster up some courage. Have the courage to admit that life stinks. And that's it. It sounded good for a moment. But when you think about it, that takes courage. It takes courage. That's surrendering. It doesn't take any courage at all. I went through some terrible experiences. Life is terrible. It's never going to get better. I've got nothing to look forward to. That takes courage. That's giving up the ship. So most people, willingly or unwillingly, cannot accept that this is it. There's a commercial that says it doesn't get better than this. I remember what the product, I don't know, potato chips. Sitting at the beach eating potato chips and a beer, yeah, and the statement is, it doesn't get any better than this. If you think like that, you are definitely part of the problem. And you're definitely not part of the solution. This is an amazing thing, and it, we take it for granted or we don't even notice. Not only the hope and the belief and the confidence that Mashiach is coming, but even the discomfort, even the complaining is noble, beyond reason. So it's not all bad, certainly, and we can't accept a world that is divided between good and bad, so there's only one solution. It's got to become all good. Unless we're all crazy, and have been for all of history. There's something in the human spirit that just won't accept defeat. And if there are two evil people in the world, it's a defeat.
Rabbi Friedman, but we keep buying into evil without wanting to. It just happens because an example would be that non-religious ladies of our times have bought into the fact that it is okay to have abortion up to 12 weeks. It's humane. Now anything afterwards is not. And we have these conversations with ladies, and they are appalled that they did think that this was okay and nothing wrong with it, because we've been told this in our day and age since the women's rights came about, that this is okay, this is moral, this is acceptable. Now anything after 12 weeks, that's not acceptable. But realistically, now people are coming to understanding this better. Before, it was not even doubted. And there's so much more things like that out there that we have been buying into. So our mind can be swayed, and evil can take over. It has taken over, and it has been ruling for a long time. So how are we protected from it now? What is changing? What is different?
I think there's a lot of difference, a lot of changes. There was a time when we believed in human sacrificing. I think that's pretty much gone, at least in its vulgar form. We used to believe in lynching. You catch a guy doing a crime, you kill him. We don't do that. We have due process and we have courts. It used to be an accepted fact that if you're the dictator, you can kill whoever you want and do whatever you want. It's not so anymore. Even in countries where they have a dictator, they're not convinced that the dictator, as powerful as he is or she is, they don't have a right to kill anyone they want. So, a very interesting incident, true life experience. There was this girl who got caught up in the Moonies, for those who remember. There was a guy they called Reverend Moon. The Unification Church, something like, it was a cult. Very, very successful, very powerful, rich cult. This Reverend Moon, I think, was Korean. He came to America and he saw that Americans have no spiritual life. And he thought, wow, this is going to be easy. People are starved for something spiritual. I'll offer them spiritual and I'll take every penny they have. And he was successful. People gave him their credit cards, their cars, their houses. He became fabulously wealthy. Eventually, he was caught on tax evasion. But here's what they believed. This Reverend Moon was the holiest man that ever lived. He was not born in sin. But he's even greater than anything Christianity ever thought of, because his children will also not be born in sin. So he will repopulate the world with children who are not born in sin. This Jewish girl got caught up in this cult, completely, thoroughly brainwashed, which is not just an expression, it's a serious mental condition. To get people out of a brainwashed condition seemed almost impossible. No one knew how to do it. Anyway, to make a long story short, we had this girl in the Chabad house, and we were arguing with her. She believed that everything in the world belongs, all wealth belongs to Reverend Moon. So whoever has any money or any valuables, it all belongs to Reverend Moon. So if they donate it willingly, fine. If you can get it from them in any other form or way, yeah, that's also fine. So we challenged her. Isn't that stealing? No. Brainwashed with that goofy smile, that blank eyes, dull, thoughtless. No, 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 no. It all belongs to him. Then we challenged her. Do you believe that he is actually God? Yes. But you know he was married and divorced? That means he made a mistake and he married the wrong woman? She says no. I said, but he got divorced. No. Well, he did get divorced, but no, it's all perfect. Anyway, nothing we said was getting through. Nothing. Until finally, this other deprogrammer I was sitting with, he says to her, how does Reverend Moon plan to repopulate the world? With one wife? How many children can he have? She said, no, he takes from his disciples, he chooses women from among his disciples to have children with, in addition to his wife. So the deprogrammer said, have you been called yet to be one of his chosen? All of a sudden, the smile went away. She said, oh, you shouldn't talk like that. He says, when God calls you, you're not going to go? She says, stop it. Don't talk like that. And all of a sudden, there was some sanity or humanity coming through. So he pressed her on that. She couldn't take it and she ran out of the room. 10 minutes later, she comes back into the room, but a big smile. What happened was she ran out into the room where there were women sitting and studying. Beis Chana, you've been there. And she said to them, is it okay to have children out of wedlock? And they said, no. She says, right. And she come back in with a big smile, and she says, no, he can't do that. And then her face fell. And she said, oh my God. He's not God, because he can't do that. She deprogrammed herself. It was amazing. He can't do that. So he's not God. He has to obey. Now, where is this profound morality that was stronger and deeper than her brainwashing insanity? This is an amazing thing in the human. As he's God, all money belongs to him. He made no mistake in his marriage. He's going to make the whole world. But then are you going to participate in this? Are you going to have babies with him? All of a sudden, her morality kicked in, which was stronger than her insanity. Amazing. So it's not even a religious thing. It's not a training or even an education. It seems to be essential to the human being that, no, it can't be like this. Why do I think that? I don't know. It just can't be. It's just wrong. Very powerful. Now, if we can stimulate a little more of that, we could have a very, very dramatic change in the world. And what stimulates that? Evil that no one can justify. Say, oh, well, that, no. That cannot be. So as the world becomes worse, it triggers this reaction in more and more people. So people are changing their mind. They used to believe that abortion was a gift from heaven. Now they're realizing it's just outright murder. Why are they realizing this? Because the evil has become so blatantly unacceptable that it triggers this reaction in people. No, it can't be. It cannot be. And it's not even, you argue logically and you don't get anywhere. I've had this argument. It's my body, I'm the owner of my body, I'm the boss over my body, and therefore I can have an abortion. If it's your body, are you free to kill it? Your body, no fetus, just you. No, you're not free to destroy your body or to sell it. So since when is it your body? Only when it comes to abortion. Only when there's another life involved, all of a sudden it's your body. There's no logic. That you argue this and it goes nowhere. Doesn't matter. But when that impulse, that instinct kicks in, then you don't need logical arguments. It's just not acceptable. In other words, if we can convince people that abortion is murder, would it stop them? So all the arguments, the baby's heart is beating, it's a human being in the process, it hasn't really changed anyone's mind. So even if you could convince people that it's murder, yeah, but it's the murder of a helpless fetus and it's not important. Just like you couldn't convince a Nazi that killing a Jew is murder. No, murder is wrong for sure, but not with Jews. How do you argue that? And that's why there was no arguing. They just have to be locked up. If you believe that certain murders are okay, you're a danger and you have to be locked up. So it's literally a compliment to the human being. And where does this come from? The Rebbe was explaining that when God said the Ten Commandments, they were a continuation of the 10 utterances of creation. So the first thing we know about God is that He said, "Let there be light." And there was light. He said, "Let there be a heaven." There was a heaven. He said, "Let there be grass." There was grass. Now at Mount Sinai, 2,000 years later, God said, "No murder." What did that create? Human beings have a revulsion to murder. Where does it come from? From the Ten Commandments. When God said, "Thou shalt not murder," it became uncomfortable to the human condition. Murder doesn't feel right. So God created morality. God said, "Do not commit adultery." There's something in the human being that rejects, is appalled by infidelity. Where did it come from? From the commandment, "Thou shalt not commit adultery." So it wasn't only an instruction, it was also a creation. So the human being has godly instincts coming from the Ten Commandments. Obviously, some are stronger than the others. Don't covet your neighbor's donkey. That didn't penetrate that deeply. we still would like to have what others have, and yet on the surface, when you say don't look at other people's, it makes sense to us. Why? Because of the commandment. Otherwise, if you think like a barbarian, you have, I want, I take. I shouldn't? What does that mean? Yet we do have this. Why are you looking at, over the fence? Why do you want what others have? It doesn't seem right, even though we continue to want. But at least intellectually we know it. Yeah, why do you do that? And that comes from the Ten Commandments. So we're essentially better than we think we are.
Rabbi Friedman, I am terribly sorry to bring this up, but if the biggest platform for the Democratic Party is a right to an abortion, does that categorize them as ungodly? Is that now the criteria for politics as well?
It is not a political issue.
It became
It's a
one.
moral. It's a moral issue. Do politicians have to be moral? Isn't that interesting that we ask such a question? Politicians don't have to be moral. They're politicians. That is very sad. Yes, politicians have to be moral, maybe more moral than the average citizen. Otherwise, why are they in a position of leadership? So yes, they have to be moral. The argument that abortion is moral is also a little bit of a... Nobody says, who cares whether it's moral or not? I want an abortion, I'm getting an abortion. The need to justify it, to make it sound like a great value, respect for women, women's rights, women's bodies, biology. What a strain, what a stretch to try to make it sound moral and humane. Why bother? Why not just say, if a woman wants an abortion, she has an abortion. You're killing a fetus? Well, too bad. So we still do have a conscience, which is good news.
Rabbi Friedman, do things really need to get a lot worse for Mashiach to come?
No, things need to get a lot better. Things need to get a lot better. And they are getting a lot better, partly due to the fact that the evil is so evil. Look, for all of history, literally for all of history, people have always argued that we can invent our own morality. Even religious people who believe in the Torah, they believe in Mount Sinai, they believe in the Ten Commandments, they believe in the entire Torah, and they still think that they have to produce morality from their own instinct or imagination. So Christianity thinks it can improve on the Torah. Islam thinks it can improve on the Torah. Secular people think they can improve on the Torah. Secular humanism, vast improvement on the Torah. This has been the history of the world. God told us what's right and wrong, but we think we know better. And every attempt has been a disaster. We keep thinking, believing blindly that our instincts are unerring and we can trust our instincts to lead us to goodness without relying on God, without relying on the Torah. Okay, it's not working. It is not working. I don't mean to bring up Israel and the war, but the Geneva Convention decided what is moral in war. And it turns out to be so immoral, every concept, every principle. It is so immoral and undoable that it's embarrassing that intelligent people actually fell for it and still fall for it. So how many times do we have to get burnt before we realize there is no improving on a Torah? There's no improving on it. We've been trying for over 2,000 years. We have failed miserably. So there's only one option left, and that is let's go back to the original. Let's go back to the original plan. God's world, God's way. Who knows God's way? The Jewish people. Not every individual, but as a whole, yes, the Jewish people still know God's way. And we have to share it.
Some very spiritual Gentiles are now kind of crying out for it on YouTube, such as Jordan Peterson. And there are others as well who are getting it and who are really actually even are emotional about it. So hopefully that is also a sign of change for the good, and hopefully that brings us a step closer. Rabbi Friedman, thank you so much. This has been incredible as always, and very educational and inspirational and positive, and we can't thank you enough for these words of wisdom, for this perspective that really changes our life for the good. So thank you so much, and hope to see you again next. Thank God it's Tuesday.